In a previous video, I showed you the leveling macro, which allows you to pull up the volume of quieter notes and pull down the volume of louder notes. But what if you wanted to do this manually on a note-by-note basis? Well, this is where the Amplitude tool comes into play. The Amplitude tool has two secondary tools, the Fade tool and the Sibilant Balance tool. I'll cover sibilant detection and the Sibilant Balance tool in the next video, and in this video I'll focus on the Amplitude tool and the Fade tool. So I've got our country singer here again, and one thing to look out for singers is to pay attention to the different registers of their voice. The chest voice, which is their lower register, head voice, and the upper register, as well as switching to falsetto. And pay attention to where the singer breaks into these different ranges.
I wasn't the only one to hold your heart, and I really wanna know. Tell me why you wasted so much of my time. I thought that I'd found everything. Now I realize we had nothing. Did she make you feel alive?
With this singer, when she jumps to the top of her range, like up here, pretty much it looks like everything from like G4 and above, she kind of jumps into a little bit of a different higher register where she's really pushing the notes a lot harder, and so these come out a lot louder than the softer notes. So with the Amplitude tool, I can select all of these higher range notes. There we go. And then I can pull them all down. And you'll see up here, it shows you how much you're pulling down these notes. So I'm not going to pull them down a lot because I don't want it to be like really noticeable that the volume has dropped too much. I just don't want the high notes to be ear piercing in comparison to everything else. So I'm just going to pull these down about 1.5 dB. And then for the softer notes, I can do the exact opposite. I can take these lower notes here where they're really, really quiet, especially down here in this really low range here. And I can pull these up. I'll pull these up about 1.5 dB as well. Let's give this a listen.
I wasn't the only one to hold your heart, and I really wanna know. Tell me why you wasted so much of my time. I thought that I'd found everything. Now I realize we had nothing. Did she make you feel alive?
And there's no compression on this yet whatsoever. You're just hearing the dry vocal with a little bit of EQ. So if you send a more dynamically balanced signal to a compressor, the compressor is going to have an easier time leveling out the dynamics without having to use any extreme settings. So what I like to do is go through with the Amplitude tool and just make some minor changes to volume here and there to compensate for really loud high notes and softer low notes. Now, if the transition between notes is getting a little weird, where you have one note that's really soft and another note that's kind of louder, there's a secondary function built into the Amplitude tool, kind of like with the pitch transitions and the pitch tool. The Amplitude tool has an amplitude transition function built into it, essentially like a crossfade for the volume between notes. So if you click and hover on the right side of any of the notes and then pull up or down, this will create an amplitude transition between the two notes. Now, obviously, this is an extreme example. I wouldn't, pull this note down by 12 dB normally. But if you want these amplitude transitions to be a bit more smooth and a bit more natural sounding, you can try applying this amplitude transition to different notes, especially when you jump from a low note that's softer to a high note that's really loud. Like if you jump immediately to a high note, this can be really helpful for smoothing out that transition. Another thing that the Amplitude tool is particularly helpful for is taming breaths in a recording. Goodbye! Do we always have to live and die? Can't we? So I've got two big breaths here, one right here. So I'll pull this down quite a bit. And another one right here. Let's give that a listen with those pulled down. Goodbye! Do we always have to live and die? Can't we live? So part of the problem with using like a debreather plugin or a gate to get rid of breaths is that it can sound kind of unnatural just for the sound and the background noise to just kind of drop down to nothing. So what I like to do is go through with Melodyne and just pull down the breaths so they're still there, but they're just really in the background. It sounds more natural that way. Next up is the Fade tool. And the Fade tool does exactly what it sounds like. You can fade in the front of blobs and you can fade out the back of blobs. So what I like to use this for in particular is softening really hard consonants in vocal recordings.
Why do we always have to say goodbye?
So we've got a few really hard consonants here. So what I'm going to do is just add a quick fade on the front end of these, just to soften them up a bit.
Why do we always have to say goodbye? Do we always have to live and die?
Yeah, we got a few really hard ones over here as well.
Bye! Do we always have to live and die?
So depending on the intensity of the song, the hard consonants might work well in some situations, but in other situations you might want more gentle consonants, and I find the fade tool really helpful for this.